Now we're making some real progress, and it's looking great. In this lesson, we're going to be taking a look at the How We Can Help You section. This has some pretty standard things in there, just some background colors, some heading and some text, but there are some feature buttons. And these buttons have images and text with a background color, and there's some cool ways that we can make this be a fluid effect without using anything complicated, any CSS, just using a few tips and tricks. So I want to show you how to create buttons and give you a few ideas on how you can do some of your own things so you can maybe try something else and get creative. All right, let's get stuck into it. Okay, so I'm in XD and this is what we're going to create next. We've got this fairly standard stuff here, which is just a heading, a couple of blocks of text. But this here is, I guess, some 3 feature buttons. I've got a really cool tip or technique for creating some nice rollovers without sort of doing anything complicated. But let's get started and we'll start to build this stuff and then we'll work on these rollovers. I'm just going to quickly copy and paste this text here and then we'll jump back into Oxygen and start doing some of this stuff. First thing we want to do, click Features, give this our dark blue background color, and then we'll add in our heading. We'll copy and paste that in there. I think this one is a H3. We'll do some of this standard stuff like go to the features, make sure this is aligned centered. We'll go back to XD, get these blocks of text, copy this. We'll go add text, paste this, copy this, add text. Paste this one, and we know that if we want to change the text on the whole, we can just change the text color on the actual section. And we do have one section which is green, which is this little bit of text here. So we can go to our green class here and change the class name to green text. And then we'll just do a few things to make sure we've got this laid out how we want. So we'll scroll down so we can see things a little bit better. This heading looks okay. I just want to make sure we've got the line height set up right. So we'll make this 1. We'll add some padding underneath this or a margin underneath this, say 20 pixels. This text here, we're going to want to do the same thing that we've done in the past where we put an actual max width on this. And we're also going to want to put a 20 pixel margin above this. Balances a little bit better. And we'll put a max width on this of say 480 pixels as a guess. And let's have a quick look. That's actually pretty good. That was a decent guess. All right, so we've got this stuff set up and that actually looks about right. What we're going to do now is get into the columns and create these feature buttons. So we can click Add. We're going to put in some columns here. Add columns. And we're going to set these up as 3, 3, and 3, or 33, 33, 33. So there's 3 equal columns. Underneath this, I'm going to want a bit of padding underneath this. And similarly that we've seen in this, we want to get rid of this padding underneath here. So we can just pull that out. Now, what we want to do with these is set up our columns. Now, something that's really great with columns, and we've seen this with a couple of other things, is that we can choose how we want these to display. So we can, for example, stack these vertically so they fall underneath each other depending on breakpoint. With this one, because we only have a real small amount of text in here, and it's not going to get too cramped, we can actually set this up so that it sort of goes into that stacked vertical column layout at something like 768. And we'll see that in a little while. Now with our divs here, we're going to make sure that we want to have some no padding on these. When you create columns, the divs actually do have padding by default. So we want to go in here and go to size and spacing, go 0, 0. Even though 0, 0 is filled out, trust me, there is padding on there. And you'll see that when you start to add stuff in there. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create a link wrapper. So go Add, Link Wrapper, and we've got this little link wrapper in here. And I'm going to actually give this a class because we're going to repeat this. So let's call this a feature button. And we've got our class for this. So we can style some of the things around here. So I'm going to make this a width of, say, 100%. And what we're going to do here is we're also going to go to size and spacing. And I'm going to give this a height of around, say, 480. Now that looks a little high. I might drop that back to, say, 420. And I want to actually start doing some stuff to this new link wrapper that we've created that isn't going to affect the class. What I want to do is put a background image in. And this is something that's really important. When you've got a class on something and you want to change something that doesn't affect that class, you need to make sure you select the ID or add another class. So I can actually just go to this ID and I can do something like put a background image on. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. I'm going to go to background, browse for our background image. Again, I need to upload this. So I'll go select files. And I have under featured images, these web design, digital marketing and SEO. So I'll select all of those. I think our first one is the web design one. So let's go select. And we know the drill with our background images. We want to make sure we set this to color. We want to make sure that the left is 50% and our top is 50%. Okay, so we've got a background image in there. Perfect. Make sure it's the right one. And we're calling this button here web design. So you see we've got this effect here where it's kind of got a bit of a gray space here with the text above it. So let's get this happening now. What we'll do is in our link wrapper, we're going to click add. We'll put a div in here. And then inside that div, we're going to put a heading. It's going to be a H5. And we'll put our text in there, web design. Now again, we can do what we normally do, which is change the color on the actual div itself. So I'm going to go to our background. Select this. We're going to go into advanced, typography, and in here, we'll change the color of our type. Now with this div here, I'm going to want to add a little bit of space here and I'm going to want to make sure that's 100% width. And I'm going to do some stuff that's going to look crazy, but it'll make sense as we start to do it. So let's just give this a little bit of padding. I don't want too much actually, but just an even amount. So we'll give it say 10 pixels all the way around. And we're going to make sure that this is set to 100% wide. And we want this text here to be centered. Now this is where it's going to look strange for a second. If I go and click the link wrapper, what I actually want to do here to create a nice effect on this link wrapper without trying to control multiple parts and multiple divs in one thing is change some padding to actually create a fluid effect. And yes, I know this is going to look strange, but bear with me, I'll explain it as we do it. So let's just go to our link wrapper and we're going to change our flex from vertical to horizontal. And we're going to change it to go from our normal alignment where you can go top, middle or bottom. We're actually going to make this one stretch where it covers everything. Now that looks weird. Yes, I know, but you'll see what happens in a minute. We'll go to the div. Now where we've got our color here, we want to change this so we can actually see through it. What you can do with the colors is you can select it. And we've got the ability to drop this back a little bit. So let's drop this back to say 80% roughly, which is around there. And well, we want this text to be aligned in the middle. Okay, great. Now we can see through, but that doesn't really help us a lot. That doesn't look like what we've got here. But what we're going to do is go to our link wrapper and change the height of this or how much is being displayed by adding some padding. Now it sounds weird, but you wait, we'll get a great effect happening on this. I'm going to do this on the actual class level. So make sure we select here, go back to the featured button class. We'll go into advanced size and spacing. And what we're going to do is add a fair amount of padding along the top here, say 280 pixels. You can see what that's done is created this block of padding here. And then this our, I guess, div with our heading in here has been pushed down to the bottom. It's not stretched anymore because of the amount of padding we have. Okay, let's do a couple of things so we get a nice rollover. Now, like normal, we'll go to our effects and we'll make sure we have a transition of 0.3, but we need to create a bit of a rollover effect. So what we can do here is go to state and select hover. What we want to change in this is the amount of padding that we have. So if we go back to size and spacing, we can change that padding up the top to something like 180. Now if we click save and we refresh this on the page, you can start to see what's actually going on here. So we've got that set up like we can see, and then when we roll over this, the padding actually changes from being 200 pixels to 100, or 280 pixels to 180 pixels, which gives us this really, really nice, simple fluid effect anywhere that we roll over our link wrapper. So that's a really, really nice way to create, I guess, an interesting effect without creating multiple classes or doing any custom CSS. All right, what we need to do is create a few more of these. Now, the easiest way to do that is to go along here and duplicate this. We can duplicate this a couple of times and then drag these into the divs. Now remember that I said that these had padding on them. The column divs had padding on them that you couldn't see. Well, now we can actually see that why I took those and put the 000 in them. We go into size and spacing. We'll have a look now. Going to 000 and getting rid of that padding. We'll do the same here. Size and spacing 000. Great. Now the last thing we want to do on these is the tweaks that we've got that make them each custom. So we'll change our text. And then we've got to change our images and our colors. So with these, we can simply just change the colors on here where we go to our dark background and change this to say our blue, and do the same thing where we drop the color back so we can see through. Same with this last one. Get rid of our dark color, put in our green, drop that back so we can see through it a little bit. Now, all we need to do is on each link wrapper here is to change the background image. Now remember, we don't want to do this on the class, we want to do this on the ID. So we want to find the digital marketing background image. So I'm going to advanced, background, and change the background image here. I think this one is the SEO. That one is our digital marketing. We'll go do the same thing on this link wrapper. Make sure we're selecting the ID, and then go advanced, background, and browse for the SEO. And there we go. Now we can see this pretty much behaving as we want. When we roll over each button, we've got this really, really great effect. Nice. So what we want to do though is match up this offset here. It's a fairly large offset, but it's fairly simple to do. We've done this before. We want to do this to the actual column itself. So we'll close up those divs. We'll go to our column, go into advanced size and spacing, and give this a nice margin, an offset margin at the bottom of say 300 pixels, 280, whatever you think looks great. You can see that that's working. If we refresh this, that's looking pretty similar now to our XT file. Maybe our image is slightly larger. We could change that if we wanted to, but I'm going to leave this. I actually feel like that looks pretty good in the design here. That's about how I want. Now, one thing we want to quickly just check is how that behaves when we go into mobile mode. We can do that by switching between these and just seeing really what happens. So if we go down here, it's looking fine at this size. Again, that's okay. Maybe that's a little large where we could adjust the size. At this 768, again, this is probably where I would start to adjust the size, but I might do this one in the size up. So I'll go to 992 And what I'll do is adjust the size here. If I open these up again, I go back to my link wrapper. I've got my class selected. I can go into advanced, size and spacing. And I think I had it set up as height of 420. I'm going to reduce that a fair bit down to say 320. And what I'll do is with my padding, I will reduce that to, I need to go back to the top and see what I actually had set up. 280. So I'm going to drop that down 100 as well, from 280 to 180. So 180. And I'm going to do the same with the rollover. Should go down to about 80. Now this will look better when I get into the mobile sizes here. If I go out of hover, you can see that's looking pretty good in these mobile sizes. So I'm pretty happy with how that's looking. The only thing that I would probably do is when it goes into this single level is I'd reduce this or take away that negative margin. So we'll go advanced, size and spacing, and remove that negative margin here, and maybe even put 10 pixels underneath it or more. Let's make that 20. So now that's what it's going to look like in our mobile mode. That was looking great. And again, we'll go to our desktop, click save, and just have a look at it one more time. Great stuff. There we go. That one was pretty cool. Hopefully you picked up a few tricks there. Maybe you've got some ideas on how you can create your own custom buttons. Now, let's keep this going. We're moving along really well, and it's great to see your progress. So, you know what to do? Click complete lesson, and I'll see you in the next one.